and controlling the people. You had a ship full of African men, women, and children who were at the mercy of the captain and all the sailors on that crew. And those men could have sex with anybody they wanted to. The women, the children, and the men.
You ought to see 3 months tied down with these white men. There ain't no women there for the most part. When they start bringing women, they weren't even bringing women. They were bringing girls between the ages of 6 and 15 and raping them all. But they also were raping the men. Same things were happening on the plantation to demasculinize the black man.
Control the slave population is to rape a father in front of his sons, or to take the biggest, baddest black man on the plantation and do something horrible to him, to completely humiliate and emasculate him, so that people won't respect him anymore. And that still happens to this day.
In the Caribbean, they had seasoning plantations, which were plantations used to break these slaves. And one plantation, or one place that had a lot of seasoning plantations, was Jamaica. And people have to wonder, what were they doing on these seasoning plantations that was worse than what was happening on the regular plantations? Well, one thing that they were doing on these plantations, especially in Jamaica, they were doing a process called buck breaking, where the white supremacist slave owner or the white supremacist overseer would literally rape black men in front of the whole black population in order to break his spirit, in order to break him down as a man, in order to show dominance against him, in order to show the rest of the black population that this is not your leader. I just made your leader submit to me sexually. And this happened a lot in Jamaica. This is why homosexuality is so looked down upon in Jamaican culture today.
And it was a way primarily of cutting down those who would rebel. In other words, it was a matter of power and control and domination. And they would call it buck busting, but it was really butt busting.
Slavery continued until 1865 for 2 generations, right? So how do you reconcile that? You can no longer bring in Africans, but you still have the business of slavery. So they still needed Africans to do the work down south, especially after the cotton gin was invented. So you had the creation of breeding farms. 2 of the largest slave breeding farms in the United States were on the eastern shore of Maryland and right outside of Richmond, Virginia. They literally bred black people like cattle. They would have a strong black man have sex with a healthy black woman. That woman could be his mother, his sister, his aunt, his cousin. It didn't matter, because the end product was produce a child that I can sell, bodies that I can sell and ship down to Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. It was a business.
We had breeding farms in the United States that would put one person from one plantation against another. We even had a system where if you were a breeder, male on one plantation, and a female on another plantation, or even on the same plantation, even if you were mother and son, they would mate you. And so I tell a lot of my patients and a lot of my friends, you got to stop using the MF word, because that was a description of what actually happened when the paper bag would go over the head and put one breeder against another when they were related.
And controlling the people. You had a ship full of African men, women, and children.
What goes around comes around, sometimes in the form of a frisbee, sometimes as a haunting nightmare, and sometimes in the form of a long, long bill. The Queen of Britain will soon receive one. It will be from Jamaica. The Caribbean country is asking the British Queen to cough up billions. What for? As reparations for slavery. Quick background. Jamaica was a British colony from 1655 to 1962. The colonizer introduced sugarcane cultivation in Jamaica, and to support it, Britain introduced slaves. People were stolen from their homes and forced to work in the field. Many were shipped across to other countries as part of the transatlantic slave trade. In 1662, there were 400 slaves in Jamaica. By 1734, the number became 86,000. Between 1702 and 1749, nearly 300,000 slaves were imported to Jamaica. More than 100,000 were exported. It was only in the year 1807 that the British Parliament abolished slave trade, and it abolished slavery in 1837. By then, Britain had abducted and enslaved at least 12.5 million people. 12.5 million people enslaved. Many of them were Jamaicans. In 1833, Britain paid off 46,000 British slave owners. They were given £20 million, almost 40% of that time's annual budget. What was this money for? To compensate for the quote-unquote loss of human property. What about these human properties themselves? What did the government give them? Forget compensation. Did Imperial Britain even offer an apology to the slaves and their families? The legacy of the slave trade still stings Jamaica. The country has been asking for justice for some time now. In 2015, then British Prime Minister David Cameron visited Jamaica. Jamaican leaders asked his government to pay reparations. Cameron was told to atone for the historical sin. The Prime Minister refused to even offer an apology. Here's what he said instead. David Cameron told Jamaica to move on. Reports published around that time revealed why he may have been so anti-reparation. Turns out one of Cameron's own family members was among many slave owners to have received compensation for loss of slaves. Jamaica did not give up its fight for justice, though. The Culture Minister recently said, and I'm quoting, "We are especially pleased to announce that we have made further steps in our strides towards seeking reparatory justice for the victims and descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. The petition is being presented to the Queen of the UK and or the government of the UK." Now, we don't know how much Jamaica is asking for exactly, but here's what we can tell you. Britain has a history of denying reparation. In 2014, a coalition of 15 Caribbean countries presented a compensation plan to the UK. They wanted reparation for slave trade. A YouGov survey at that time found that 46% of the respondents in the UK opposed reparations. What about the government? The Foreign and Commonwealth Office said reparations are quote-unquote not the answer for the legacy of slave trade. May I then ask, what is? What's the answer for the legacy of slave trade? After the Second World War, Germany was made to compensate for the damages. In the years since, several companies have had to cough up money for oil spills, for nuclear power plant leaks, for gas leaks, for accidents. And here we are talking about millions of people being abducted and enslaved, but Britain refuses to atone for its inhumanity. And FYI, reparations for transatlantic slave trade could add up to $14 trillion. Of course, the UK refuses to pay. Just like it refuses to return stolen goods. Be it India's Kohinoor or Ethiopia's manuscripts, treasures from British colonies decorate the crown and its properties today. They hang on the walls of its museums and palaces, and the UK sees nothing wrong with any of this. It feels no shame or the moral obligation to at least be apologetic, to at least apologize for its historic blunders. Today, Jamaica is setting a trend. It is asking for compensation for historical wrongs. Compensation it is entitled to. Compensation that 54 Commonwealth nations are also entitled to. The Great Britain ruled them all, looted them all. You see, the British Empire was the largest the world has ever seen. It ruled over parts of Africa, Asia, America, Australia, and New Zealand. It squeezed all of them. From Africa, it abducted, trafficked, and enslaved people. Stole Benin bronzes. From Greece, it stole Elgin marbles. From Ethiopia, manuscripts. And from India, it drained $45 trillion. It is time for reparation. And while the world comes together to make China pay, it must not forget to also demand accountability from the British Crown. WION is now available in your...
Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to our poet Yahweh, Shem Shai, Shem Kodash. That's in the ancient Hebrew, saying all praises to Yahweh in the name of Yahushai, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Yahweh is the correct name for the God of the Bible, who the world ignorantly calls Jehovah, her God. And I, his son's true name in the Hebrew is Yahushai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, or Yeshua. The true name for the God of the Bible in the Hebrew is Yahweh, and his son's true name in the Hebrew is Yahushai. I want to give the bonus unto our elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and shalom to our brothers and Modia, pushing this word in sincerity and in truth, to all that believe in this gospel. Shalom. Quick precept, Zechariah chapter 11 and verse 4. But thus saith the Lord, my power, feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them, and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. And now we have the so-called white race, the Edomites, the devil that the Bible speaks of. He is basically had us in captivity, and here were people, seeking reparations, but in truth and in fact, the devil will not, basically answer to his crimes. That's fine, because we, the Israelites, the prophets, the men of the Most High, we want reparation from you. In fact, we want nothing from you. We will have you to be our slaves in the kingdom of heaven, that Yahushua, the Son of the Most High, is coming back to set up. Galatians chapter 6 verse 7. Be not deceived, Yahweh is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. You have sown slavery, you have raped, plunder, destroy the earth, therefore you will reap what you have sown, and there is no getting away. Revelation 22 verse 11. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. You have sown slavery, and you will reap, basically, slavery. You will indeed go back in captivity for what you have done. All you Edomites, every one of them, as is written. Revelation 13 and verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints, and that scripture. This is the book of Nahum, chapter 1 and verse 2. Yahweh is jealous, and the Lord revengeth. The Lord revengeth, and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserveth wrath for his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger, and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord had his way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. The so-called white race will not be acquitted for the sins that they have done. They have done great transgression. You have touched the apple of the Most High. You will suffer. You will pay. You will pay. This is Amos chapter 1 verse 11. And thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, Edom is the so-called white race, the devil that the Bible speaks of. And for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with a sword. Who is his brother? Jacob. The Israelites, which are the so-called Negroes, Native Americans, despised Latinos. Because he did pursue his brother with a sword, and did cause off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his rod forever. Up unto this day, them still don't want to admit, them fuck up. And we know they're the devil. We don't expect them to. We don't want you to, because you will be forced back in slavery, and that's judgment. Psalms 149 and 1. Praise ye the Lord Yahweh, sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise in the congregation of the saints. Let Israel rejoice in him that made him. Let the children of Zion be joyful in their king. Let them praise his name in the dance. His name is Yahweh, so his name is Yahushai. Let them sing praises unto him with a timbrel and harp. And the Lord taketh pleasure in his people. He will beautify the meek with salvation. Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of Yahweh be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen, and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains, and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor of all his saints. Praise ye Yahweh Shem Shai. Last precept I want to get in the book of Isaiah. Chapter. Isaiah 14, and let's start at verse 1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall join with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. This is the Israelite foreigners, verse 2. And the people shall take them, and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and for handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. In I believe Jeremiah 30 and 16. Yep, Jeremiah 30 verse 16. Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And they that spoil thee shall be spoiled, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. And that's true judgment that Yahweh Shem Yoshai is about to execute upon the earth. Giving all praises to our poor Yahweh Shem Yoshai, Boshem Kodash. Double honors unto our elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the full like Shalom.